presente, prima raggiungiamo il futuro. Questa è l'idea che ci spinge ogni giorno a muovere il nostro paese verso la ripresa, a dare a tutti nuovi percorsi da seguire, a usare l'innovazione per essere più liberi di crescere, a esportare la nostra eccellenza italiana nel mondo, ad anticipare i cambiamenti per costruire un domani più sostenibile con tutti voi, perché il futuro è la nostra destinazione, solo se è un viaggio che facciamo insieme. Più investiamo nel presente, prima raggiungiamo il futuro. Questa è l'idea che ci spinge ogni giorno a muovere il nostro paese verso la ripresa, a dare a tutti nuovi percorsi da seguire, a usare l'innovazione per essere più liberi di crescere, a esportare la nostra eccellenza italiana nel mondo, ad anticipare i cambiamenti per costruire un domani più sostenibile con tutti voi, perché il futuro è la nostra destinazione, solo se è un viaggio che facciamo insieme. Più investiamo nel presente, prima raggiungiamo il futuro. Questa è l'idea che ci spinge ogni giorno a muovere il nostro paese verso la ripresa, a dare a tutti nuovi percorsi da seguire, a usare l'innovazione per essere più liberi di crescere, a esportare la nostra eccellenza italiana nel mondo, ad anticipare i cambiamenti per costruire un domani più sostenibile con tutti voi, perché il futuro è la nostra destinazione, solo se è un viaggio che facciamo insieme. Più investiamo nel presente, prima raggiungiamo il futuro. Questa è l'idea che ci spinge ogni giorno a muovere il nostro paese verso la ripresa, a dare a tutti nuovi percorsi da seguire, a usare l'innovazione per essere più liberi di crescere, a esportare la nostra eccellenza italiana nel mondo, ad anticipare i cambiamenti per costruire un domani più sostenibile con tutti voi, perché il futuro è la nostra destinazione, solo se è un viaggio che facciamo insieme. Più investiamo nel presente, prima raggiungiamo il futuro. Questa è l'idea che ci spinge ogni giorno a muovere il nostro paese verso la ripresa, a dare a tutti nuovi percorsi da seguire, a usare l'innovazione per essere più liberi di crescere, a esportare la nostra eccellenza italiana nel mondo, ad anticipare i cambiamenti per costruire un domani più sostenibile con tutti voi, perché il futuro è la nostra destinazione, solo se è un viaggio che facciamo insieme. Più investiamo nel presente, prima raggiungiamo il futuro. Questa è l'idea che ci spinge ogni giorno a muovere il nostro paese verso la ripresa, a dare a tutti nuovi percorsi da seguire, a usare l'innovazione per essere più liberi di crescere, a esportare la nostra eccellenza italiana nel mondo, ad anticipare i cambiamenti per costruire un domani più sostenibile con tutti voi, perché il futuro è la nostra destinazione, solo se è un viaggio che facciamo insieme.
Welcome to you all. Welcome to the people who are here with us. Welcome to all those who are connected with us in streaming for this session of the meeting 2021 entitled The Courage to Say I. My name is Alessandro Bracci, chairman of the Teddy Group and vice chairman of CDO, and I have the pleasure to facilitate this session entitled Retail 5.0 Scenario Strategies and Policies for a Key Sector for the Well-Being of Society. Today we're going to talk about trade and retail. Why is that important? It is important to talk about it for three reasons. First, with some data that is really unknown to many, we will understand how retail is important for our economy and how it will be important for the recovery of Italy. Second, retail is a pulsing heart, a beating heart. And we realize how important it is when it stops beating. This is what we've seen during the lockdown. We have found out that it is extremely important to have local shops beside us. Third, retail, modern retail, organized retail, is a sector where most competitive battles are fought today. In the early 2000s, the fight of globalization, and today, digitization and sustainability, the other two battles. Therefore, it is a very important sector, a fascinating one, which can give new prospects to future generations. This is what we're going to talk today with our very distinguished panelists, whom I will now introduce as they appear. Valerio De Molli, Managing Partner and CEO of the European house Ambrosetti, that has co-organized a session. Laura Gabrielli, CEO of Gabrielli Gruppi and a member of the board of directors of Gabrielli Group. Massimo Dell'Acqua, CEO of Euronics, Patrizia de Luise, National President of Confesercenti, and last but not least, the Vice Minister for Economic Development, Gilberto Pichetto Fratin. In short, Valerio De Molli will be the first one to speak. It will give us an outline on the importance, the size of retail in our economy. Then we will give the floor to companies on the experience of COVID and on future prospects. And then we'll have a talk with the minister on the points raised. And now the floor goes to Valerio De Molli. Thank you, Alessandro. Thank you for working with Laura, Massimo, and other partners on this session, Retail 5.0. I will try to explain the idea of this session at the Rimini meeting. So, as we said, this session is entitled Retail 5.0 Scenario Strategies and Policies for a Key Sector for the Well-Being of a Society. So, I will give you an outline to, let's say, give you the context about the mission, the platform, and the partners of this initiative. And I will tell you the 5 reasons why we believe that it is now very strategic to talk about distribution and specialized retail in Italy. Let me say, first of all, that people actually do not really realize the strategic, innovative importance and the impact that retail can have on the Italian economy. But then I will give you some figures. For those of you who don't know, the European House Ambrosetti is the first Italian think tank in Italy, the 4th one in Europe. This is stated by the University of Pennsylvania in its report, and for 8 years in a row, we've been ranking like this. So we are also among the 21st top employers in Italy. There is 300 people. We publish more than 200 studies every year and more than 500 events and meetings every year. But let me talk about the mission of this Retail Community 5.0, which is to become the most important think tank on the retail sector by grouping together different partners belonging to different segments of the specialized retail. So we carry out analysis, we table proposals, and we develop a debate connected to the social and economic context in Italy. We have 3 partners with us in the panel. Starting from you, Alessandro, we have Troni, Unieuro, Teddy, Expert Eurocommercial, Euronics, Casanova, FG Gallerie, Gabrielli Group, Bennett Gallerie, KPR, IGD, and Shop and Play, Bardelli Group. These are all entrepreneurial groups with over 6 billion euro turnover, 620 million added value, aggregate value, 21,000 employees and 5,000 points of sales, accounting for 9% of all points of sale in Italy. This is a strong point of this group of partners. We have 5 different sectors we focus on. We have an observatory carrying out statistical data, statistical analysis. Then we have an international network of the community in order to gather all the European experiences. Then we have a part making proposals for the development of the agenda in Italy. Then we have a network of the community working with institutions. And then we have a communication and visibility strategies working also with the social media and with the hashtag community retail. It is very important to talk about specialized retail in Italy today for 5 reasons. I'm not going through them in detail, but I will dwell upon them later on point by point. First of all, it is important in terms of size. The retail, the specialized retail sector is a very big one. Its aggregate turnover amounts to half a trillion euro, 98.6 billion euro of added value in 2019, and it accounts for 30% of the Italian GDP. Until April this year, our government has never given this platform any power and has never established any dedicated minister like other countries, for example. From a technical and scientific point of view, we carry out different analyses. In our database, we have 35 million analyses on financial statements on 500,000 companies in a period of 10 years. These are some figures. We have turnover, added value, employees and investments, which are enormous in size. The specialized sector in Italy invests 11% of all the private investments throughout the country, hence the importance of this sector. Many of you will have heard me, the slogan of the European House, Ambrosetti, is no investment, no work, no work, no growth, no growth, no future. So, the companies focusing on investments are those creating employment, thus giving a future to our country. Just to give you an idea for those of you who are not familiar with this data, the 100 million of added value of the specialized retail are worth 12 times as much as the Italian fashion industry. 15 times as much as Italian design and furniture, and 26 times as much as the shoewear sector. I'm not saying that it is more important than others, but this is just to give you an idea of the size of the specialized retail. Let me give you a snapshot on 2020. The crisis hit very hard with a decrease in turnover by 11.5% and with a decrease by 7.6% of added value and 3.3% less employees than before. It means that local the entrepreneurs have done their best in order to keep employment despite all the problems. Even investments have slowed down only by 8.9%. Specialized retail includes many different sectors. There is not one single snapshot acknowledged by ISTA, the Italian National Institute for Statistics. We have collected all the different sectors and all the different codes. So these are all the different sectors included in the specialized sector. I'm not going into detail right now, but you will be able to get to this presentation later on offline. We also have manufacturing connected to retail, which generates a 13%, which generates the fact that the specialized retail accounts for 13% of the Italian GDP. There is no dedicated ministry on specialized retail, while Anglo-Saxon countries have had it for more than 100 years. France has had it for more than 50 years. Spain introduced a dedicated ministry 3 years ago, and hopefully Italy will do the same. Although we need now to pay tribute to the appointment of the Vice Minister, Gilberto Pichetto Fratin. Actually, he was appointed with special powers on trade in April 2021. And we have insisted on that. We have insisted on the fact that within the government must have powers in this sector. Well, the second reason is connected to the impact on the economic, social, and environmental sustainability of specialized retail. Because it works on the achievement of 50% of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, which you can see here in the slide. Before being appointed as minister with Professor Giovannini, we carried out a very detailed analysis in order to understand where the specialized retail could really contribute to achieve sustainable development goals. Well, in the detailed report, you can find a lot more data. However, in general, I can tell you that half of the macro objectives are achieved also thanks to specialized retail. In addition to that, this sector produces a very strong impact in Italy in terms of women's employment and youth employment, accounting for the impact on women employment accounts for 11.5% and 37% for the youth. And it is the 10th sector out of more than 200 sectors in terms of value of absolute growth over the past 10 years. So in terms of sustainability, it does have a lot of impact. However, there are still some differences between the operators of the physical specialized retail and technological platforms. These topics will need to be discussed in the future, and I will just give you a few examples. The problems are connected to taxation, where there are many differences, rules and regulations which are very different, and costs in terms of urbanization. The third reason is that this sector is undergoing unprecedented change, also thanks to digitization, innovation, and technologies. Customers can be offered a very special experience by specialized retail online and offline. So not only products are sold, but also solutions and services are provided, also through technological platforms. And here we have made a comparison with Netflix, just to provide an example. As you were saying beforehand, at a time of crisis during the lockdown, specialized retail provided a place to meet people, a way to have an experience. It provided places where actually people could meet. The fourth reason, the next generation EU and Italian recovery plan will open up very important opportunities for specialized retail. You will find a few figures in my presentation on the national plan and on the impact of this sector in Italy. Digitization, innovation, competitive and culture, and green revolution and inclusion and social cohesion are specific features and specific sectors on which specialized retail can speed up the achievement of objectives. Fifth reason why this sector is important, and I will also explain to you why Retail 5.0. Now, the philosophy point, in the philosophy 5.0, the well-being of man is at the center of any entrepreneurial activity. The founder of this idea is Professor Yuko Yaramana, who is one of our principal experts in Japan, working at the University of Tokyo. And she has promoted a philosophy of life and entrepreneurial behaviors on the Retail 5.0 that was implemented by the Japanese government in its plan. Basically, the vision underlying Society 5.0 implies a smart society. Whereby people are at the center, and technologies, industry, government, institutions, and research center share the logic of based on the well-being of men. And let me make a comparison with the meeting of this year, the I, which is at the center of growth. And so there's the I and the community, the I and society, the private and the public sector. And we have not chosen the Retail 5.0 just to come to the Rimini meeting and to explain it, but it enables us to tell the vision of the meeting of this year. And I'm very happy to have come back after many years to the Rimini meeting. Hence, we close the loop with the Community 5.0, whose aim is to put the specialized retail sector at the center of this philosophy of change. Let me conclude. We will organize a final forum on the 15th of this December. It's going to be a phygital event in Rome in order to present the final analysis. Gilberto, I hope you're going to be there at this event, as well as I'm inviting all the panelists to come. And let me conclude with a sentence by Professor Yarahama. It is high time to implement Society 5.0, an information society using the most advanced technologies, where the human well-being is right at the center of the society model. We can no longer wait. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, because you give me the opportunity to continue our talk. So you outlined a giant of our economy, something that maybe was not so clear until now, and this giant is made of many single eyes. So many companies, some smaller, some bigger, but individual companies that have tackled the specific and special pandemic situation on a daily basis, and they did so thanks to their solid base made of values and principles and guidelines. So I have now a question for Laura and Massimo, and then with Patrizia de Luise, we will go into more details about small businesses. But now the question for you is the following. What did the pandemic crisis teach you? Where are you heading for? What do you expect for the future, considering also the current situation and the pandemic that is partially behind us already? Good morning, everybody. I must say that we have tried to make the most of our values, because we have been in existence for over 120 years. So starting from, emporiums and then department stores. So we were born at the end of the 19th century. Now we have 250 points of sales in Umbria, Molise, Abruzzo, Lazio, and not only. And then in the 90s, we developed shopping malls and commercial centers. And now we have relations with 350 businesses of the specialized retail sector. Those who work in this sector knows far too well that this is a constantly evolving business. So we have proximity businesses, superstores around the corner, shops. So it is extremely important to be ready to respond to the ever-changing consumers' needs. And this applies also to large shopping malls and commercial centers. We are aware of the fact that consumers somehow define the rules of this game. But what we understood very clearly is that the most important challenge is to be close to the people, especially where they live. And when we talk about people, we talk about our customers, our suppliers, both local and national, our service providers, our commercial partners in the shopping malls, and so on and so forth. During the pandemic, we experienced a very peculiar situation, because on the one hand, we were those selling consumer goods, primary goods, essential goods. So we were supposed to provide an essential and basic service. But on the other hand, we had to protect our frontliners, checkout operators and point of sale workers, and so we had to protect them. So a big thank you to them and to their families and dear ones, because those who every day were there on the front line, providing essential services, had to take up such a hard challenge. And then we had the shopping mall operators. And all the players involved in this sector had to cope with all the rules set forth by the state and the government. We complied with all the rules that were set forth, and we were pretty virtuous in that. And then during the lockdown, as you know far too well, unfortunately, many businesses had to shut down. And so the challenge was to stay close to those people who were suffering because of the situation. And that was a very precious opportunity also to strengthen relationships, because I must say that we had the opportunity also to experience the sympathy of many people. And then there is our beloved territory, so the local areas where we work and where we are. And being close to the areas you work in is extremely important. So it's important to cooperate with healthcare institutions, voluntary workers associations, public entities, trying to understand what we could do. We provided masks, for instance. We provided beds to hospitals, healthcare kits given to associations, Red Cross centers, and other associations that were giving help and aid and support to the people in need. So we really try to be there to support the communities and to provide tangible help, but at the same time to keep cooperating with those associations that for us are a real reason of being proud, like the Banco Alimentare and AIRC and FAI. For instance, with Banco Alimentare, we collected 37 tons of food corresponding to a value of 150,000 euros. And with the food collection, we gathered another 32 tons of goods. And then as a company, we donated some gift cards because family in need and deprived families desperately needed help. So there were many households that had to face a very bad period. Thank you very much, Laura. And it's extremely important to underscore the social role that you played. So congratulations. And Massimo, I come to you. Good morning, everybody. And I'll try, first of all, to say in a few words what Euronics is. Euronics stemmed from the idea of a group of businessmen that decided to get together to generate purchasing synergies, service synergies, but by keeping a certain level of local management characterized by direct management. So the idea was also to keep an eye on the local realities. These companies got together in 1972, so we have a pretty long history. And then they established Euronics International later on in the 90s. So we have 10 partners today, 10 associates, and we have 6,500 employees, and we have several hundreds of points of sales in Italy, especially in Campania, Apulia, Lazio, and Lombardy regions, just to give you a few numbers. Then we have Euronics International. That is a group established in 1990, accounting for the third global player now, so 27 members covering 39 countries, developing 21.5 billion of turnover. So it's a pretty large business entity. What did we learn from the pandemic? Well, probably I will repeat things that have already been said. So in the first period, we were pretty upset because we had no clear ideas about what was happening, about the procedures. So everything was pretty confused. And at the same time, we tried to keep, providing a service to our customers, and everybody wanted, to restart as soon as possible. Especially, we understood that there was a great need for some products because of remote connections, because people needed desperately to adapt to the new statics imposed by the pandemic. Italy has a very high level of mobile phones, and households had not so many computers at home, so everybody had to get ready to go remote, and now we have almost one computer for one person. But believe me, from an operational point of view, it's not easy to move from 1.5 million of PCs to 2.6 million of PCs being sold in 1 year. It's huge, because then you also have to find, the goods to be sold, so you have to source them somewhere. So we had to respond to consumers' needs, and also we had in particular to be ready to provide consumers the digital tools they needed. And I must confess that there was a surge in the request for some products because consumers also decided to go digital more and more, and then there was a growing response when it comes to online sales, and the so-called click and collect service was very popular because people didn't want to spend too much time in the physical shops. But let's talk about evolution of the market and the estimates for the next few months. Certainly, the COVID crisis brought about a number of changes, and all companies, big and small, had to sustain costs to comply with the safety and security rules and to adapt to the new scenarios. And we are all aware now to what extent of the important and clear role played by technology in any sector. So digital tools are requested more than ever. And also we realized the need to develop new industrial partnerships, because it is clear that in such changing times that keep evolving, and also needs of consumers are evolving, it's very important to have stronger partnerships with manufacturers, because on the one hand you can optimize your stock and have a better stock at every point of sale in order to better service your customers. And of course everybody increased the time spent on a connection, and so we also increased our digital presence and reduced paper marketing, so to speak. And also we saw that some trends became stronger. For instance, we saw an acceleration in some particular areas. For instance, we saw a big increase in the share of online market in 2020 in the US. The online market in 3 months increased by a share that had been estimated before the pandemic to be carried out over 10 years. 70% of purchasing decisions made by consumers have been based on the combination between digital tools and physical shops. So certainly we are asking ourselves many questions about the future of consuming trends, because there is a Banca Italia report about credit, and over the last 10 years many branches have been closed. So the Netherlands and the UK lead the ranking of the online market, and there has been an average closing of physical shops by 20-25% on average. So again, we are asking ourselves questions about that, because points of sale today need to manage innovative services. We need to develop new models, and the connection to the local area is very important. So again, even physical shops are certainly evolving, and sometimes the cost of the rent is a problem. And physical shops, on the one hand, are there for specific reasons, but also they can play an important role when a product gets to its end of life. So physical shops play a key role when it comes to collecting end-of-life products. And also, very often, when people browse around the shop, or sometimes just come across something they did not know about, and through what is called a serendipity sort of conduct, they just buy something they had not planned to buy. So it is very important to be present in a sort of omni-channel mode, so trying to provide several purchasing channels to consumers. And so it's not about choosing on an either-or basis between the physical shop and the online market. We need to combine both because they respond to different needs. And I want to add a last point that has to do with the scenario that companies like ours have to manage on a daily basis. That is the key role played by people. It's not just a trivial statement. I mean, I think that when it comes to the responsibility of companies in general, especially in a world that is constantly changing in a very fast way, well, we need to consider that people cannot be left alone. For the very first time in history, there is a vertical responsibility from the board of directors, the managing director, down to the checkout operator, the till operator. We need to train all workers, all employees, in order to somehow train them to the new evolving scenarios. The second key element is that we certainly need to consider the kind of attitude to develop, because technological innovation and the pace of such innovation pushes us to change our approach to training. So training, in our opinion, is key in order to positively adapt to future scenarios.
Andiamo ora a una parte.
Okay, let us now focus on a very important part of this retail, as in community shops, community retail, which have shown how they are important during the pandemic because they are there. They play a fundamental role to meet the primary needs of families. However, for a long time, this will lead to an increasing number of entrepreneurs, which also is of the utmost importance for employment to the youth. So we have Patrizia de Luise, National President of Confesercenti. How do you see the present, and what are the criticalities and opportunities for the future? Well, let me start by thanking you for inviting me here, and thank you for focusing this debate on retail and especially community retail, as well as community enterprises, artisans, freelance, all the little entrepreneurs that are on the street and that provide a good quality of life to citizens and to towns and villages. Let's be clear. Not much attention had been paid in past years to proximity retail, to community retail by politics, for example. Talking about companies, I've often said that we need to approach enterprises, companies, as if it was a tailor-made dress. We need to intervene according to the type of companies. Now, luckily enough, since the end of April, we have a minister that is going to be dedicated to that. Also, thank you for inviting representatives of the community retail and also a representative of organized trade, which also has a very good impact on the quality of life and is a job opportunity for the youth. I'm a trader myself and I love my job. It's a daily challenge. It's a hard job, but every day I take on the challenge of the market. So it is a very important opportunity. There are many women and many women entrepreneurs, as the Molli said beforehand. So let's no longer talk about equal gender opportunities and equal youth opportunities. Stop now. Let's provide the conditions so that there are job opportunities which are equal for everyone, because now this is not the case. Over the last pandemic, we have seen all these criticalities, infrastructure in terms of infrastructures, schools, healthcare sector, and we have seen all the criticalities and all the problems that had been neglected in the past. In the past, we were just focusing on companies and not on community retail. It is important to have all types of companies, all types of enterprises, because they can all contribute to the national economic development. So they must not compete with one another, but we must cater for their needs according to their specific needs. So all these criticalities have emerged during the pandemic in a very clear way and in a very strong way. Also, we have seen the resilience, let's say the community retail dates back to the very distant past. And I'm convinced that community retail is here to stay and will always exist. So during the pandemic, we have also understood the importance of the service provided by community retail, not only in terms of food products or commodities to be sold, but also in terms of relations. Over those months where people were really afraid to get out, we, associations, have given our contribution, and let's thank all our doctors who have done a great job. Let's thank the mayors, but also let's thank all the men and women of the different associations who were frontline in order to support community retail shops who needed to work in order to provide services to citizens. Hence, we saw this resilience and this creativity to be able to survive on the market. For example, I can think about a young group of people who had just opened up a restaurant. They had invested all their money, and then COVID came. But What have they done? Well, actually, they just organize themselves to provide delivery. They started to use new technologies, hence the importance of new technologies, because I am convinced as a trader and as a shopkeeper that community retail shops will always be needed, but they need to innovate. They need to give consumers what they ask for. I was talking to the vice minister beforehand about this. It's not that people can improvise. They cannot work on their own. Therefore, tools are needed, and tools must be implemented in order to promote the use of new technologies, to promote the innovation of community retail shops. Let me say a couple more things. Luckily enough, in Italy, we have a large number of elderly people. People who do a job need to find out what the market needs, and there is a very important opportunity among the elderly. Let's not miss this opportunity. Also, the associations supported entrepreneurs in order to tell them how they had to behave. And we also provided services to citizens, to residents, to the elderly who lived on their own, who were going down to the shop in the street. Because usually you have a relationship of trust and confidence with the person working in the shop, in the street. And community retail shops were also important because they were providing information to citizens, to customers that were entering the shop. So we needed to understand what type of country we want to live in 20 or 30 years. If we want to live in a country in line with the needs of people, then community retail shops must be put in the right conditions to survive on the market and to continue working. Thank you. So, just a quick second round of questions. Based on the experience we have just heard, in your opinion, what should we ask the government today in order to support the community retail shops? I'll be very short because we have already talked about that. The I is very important here. The courage to say hi is a good motto, because if I have no courage to acknowledge myself as I cannot have respect for others. The I, the self, and the other are the we, and only we can solve things together, only by working together, and only by overcoming problems together. We are now entering a very difficult time. We're going to have administrative elections, the vaccination program, the vaccination campaign, the international situation is going to be difficult. However, political parties still need to remember about community retail, and they have to still focus on investments for recovery. What do we have to do for that? Training, but training not just for employees, but also for entrepreneurs, for the community retail entrepreneurs. Training has never been done for them. Only associations, different trade associations have given them training. So we need to invest on training. You cannot improvise on any kind of job, especially not in 2020. Community retail shops must be revived, relaunched. We need to focus on equal opportunities in terms of gender and generations, and also credit. We need to focus on credit. I'll put it very simple. We need to have a smoother credit, even because those who get credit are those who are richer. Those who are poorer and have more problems do not get credit. We propose to set up a unit, a crisis unit, that can help whether to give credit or not. I mentioned credit beforehand. The revival of community retail shops. I've already said that. But anyway, this is what I think. We need a network of community retail.
Massimo Dell'Acqua, a question for you. What is the promise that large companies like yours want to make? So to what extent the government can also respond to your needs? So first of all, as far as the vision for the future is concerned, for a retailer like ours, Euronics, we are trying to offer technological solutions going beyond the emergency period. So our final goal is to improve the customer experience. That implies that one of the most urgent and crucial issues is sustainability combined with the circular economy. This is partially related to the COVID emergency, but it is something also that we need to make part of our daily business and operating activities, because we need to better manage the circular economy aspects of our business, especially when it comes to the recycling of electronic goods, and also we need to keep an eye on the sustainable and circular approach of our suppliers. And secondly, we want really to somehow support our employees when it comes to the technological challenges that they will have to take up within our points of sale. So we need to provide them training. And another key issue is that for shops like ours selling consumer goods, electronic goods, and technology, it's different if you sell a technological device to a teenager or to a 70-year-old person. So you need to relate to that consumer in very much different way as a salesperson. So again, our sale people certainly need to get ready to provide better services. And then let's go on. We need to share more. We need to really make up a community and behave like a community, because the COVID crisis showed that very clearly, the fact of sharing scenarios, and we saw that with the Ambrosetti and also with the Community Retail 5.0 platform. That was extremely useful to better identify problems and solutions. Retail is a very strong business for consumers. In order to better analyze the needs of the consumers, we need to get together also to strengthen our training activities. Let's move on to more tangible aspects. And here I address the Vice Minister. So there is the management of the timing, because, you know that we got many funds from Europe because of the National Recovery Resilience Plan, and there are many reforms that have been written inside his plan. But then, I mean, a simple scrap economic bonus becomes a huge obstacle. So again, we need to have clear and quick answers, because otherwise the things risk to become too complicated. Secondly, there is the fairness when it comes to the competitiveness between traditional retail and online retail. We already heard about that because Valerio talked about that. There cannot be differences when it comes to taxation and taxes, as well as some charges, because of course we need to guarantee an equal foot when it comes to the rules and the duties, because I mean it's important to guarantee fairness. And then sustainability and training, and another two key areas that have already been mentioned. And for us, the cashless society is a sort of goal to be achieved, because we are in favor of such new settings. And finally, we are strongly waiting to sort of get to know the executive decrees of the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, especially when it comes to education, training activities, and other sustainable activities. So Laura, the same question for you. So first of all, we want to adapt our facilities to technological innovation and put respect for people and the environment first. Some years ago, that just seems to be trendy to talk about social responsibility, sustainability. But today, this is a sort of must-do thing. It's inevitable. Everybody's asking us for that. Investors, workers, consumers, customers. We need to be environmentally, economically, and socially sustainable. We ask the government to acknowledge the key role played by community retail. So any kind of point of sale is important, and we need to realize that this is the beating heart of a community. And when that heart stopped beating, we saw what happened during the pandemic. So physical retail plays a strategic role when it comes to employment, when it comes to protection and promotion of a territory. Well, let's say it out loud. We need to highlight the value of such businesses. It's not just about providing a service, because I mean, this is something that plays such an important role at so many levels, because those that just work online have other features. So physical retail is certainly to be protected and promoted and enhanced. We really want to keep investing to make our facilities more sustainable from an energy point of view, from an environmental point of view. We also want to rehab and refurbish the existing buildings, because we want to become more sustainable, but on the other hand, we need to be supported. If we see the post-lockdown data, we see that in spite of the sort of shutdown period, we see that people still want to buy in physical shops. But on the other hand, online sales went up as well. But we need to support and protect the physical retail activities. So, Vice Minister, well, so many issues. I'll try to recap everything in two questions. One is easier and one is more difficult. I start with the easier one. So, community retail basically is asking for a more shared approach in order to have a better understanding of the government strategy for the retail sector. So three key topics have been raised by our guests. And these three topics are considered as key for recovery. So digitalization, training and education, and the connection between online and offline retail. That, in my opinion, also has to do with training. So, Vice Minister, what can you tell us about the short-term future and about the actions that the government will take? So this is the easy question I start with. Well, it's not that easy as a question, but okay, I'll try to answer in 10 minutes, in less than 10 minutes. Well, talking about the courage to say hi, it takes courage to answer to such a difficult question. So first of all, I want to thank Ambrosetti and all the other guests contributing to this panel and the organizers, of course. So, well, I must say that in the first part of this session, there was a good definition of retail today in a country like ours, because the U.S. is a different country, is a different situation. Well, retail in the U.S. is different from retail in Italy. In Italy, retail immediately means places, and in a country with 8,000 municipalities, so many small places. So retail means people getting together, people just meeting each other, people establishing relations. It's an old concept of agora, so of squares. So we are an old country, a country made of old people, but again, sometimes it's important to remember that retail is also a heart that keeps places alive and prevent people from abandoning them, and also makes cities more, pleasant to live in. And sometimes, the fact that shops are in a place guarantee a certain lifestyle that goes beyond mere trade. So it is very important to consider that. So I'm in charge of economic development and not of social policies. But still, I think that we should never underestimate the social role played by retail, especially in small places and cities and villages. So the last 1.5 years was extremely special, and we must confess that, well, so far it's hard really to understand the real consequences of what happened. So I think that we always say that any data we have is something that is about. It's not accurate because it's hard really to have final data. But certainly we need skilled and trained companies and businesses. So the role of professional associations is key, as well as that of professional training that can be provided by region through the European Social Fund. So intermediary bodies play a key role. I took some notes about everything that was said, but something was said about consumers that are aware of things. But I read that the lockdown made people more aware about sustainable products, and it is very important to consider that consumers are increasing their level of knowledge about everything. Adam Smith, the great economist, used to say that consumption is the sole purpose of production. So consumption determines the level of production. But the next question is, how will the shop of the future look like? Extremely specialized or a large one-stop shop place where you can find everything? We don't know yet. Well, in the 19th century, you had chemist shops and pharmacies with drawers and pots, and you could get a little bit everything. But after the pandemic, what will happen? In the new technological era, what will happen? Well, maybe pharmacies will also change. When it comes to current pharmacies, they have to evolve. So maybe for some products you can still go to a pharmacy, but maybe other products can be ordered at a later time, can be ordered online. And so now we'll start talking about the acceleration. So I'll try to respond to the questions that were asked. Workers and employers need to be ready to be trained. So training is certainly key, combined with the digitization of companies, because digitization is crucial if we really want to leapfrog into the future. When it comes to digitization, we also need to somehow be careful about what is present online, because it is important to know that things need to be guaranteed. And maybe the online can somehow create fairer conditions both for small and large businesses. Well, when it comes to businesses and the banking system, we certainly need to be extra careful. It goes without saying that the same applies to circular economy. We are at the forefront at the European level when it comes to circular economy in general. We can become leaders in that respect, but our companies need to get the right tools to do so. And at the same time, we need to manage that together with supply chains. I think about the textile sector. The textile sector will soon deploy a sort of scraping system. So on the one hand, there's going to be a national entity collecting, waste and fashion scrap, let's say, textile scrap. And on the other, we will be better at combating against counterfeiting. That is another big problem. But of course, the executive decrees are necessary. This government has done so much over the last few months. Well, some discussions are still underway. The government coalition is a very large one, getting together so many parties. But as our Prime Minister says, we need to seize the opportunity of this moment to change the country for the better. And changing the country also means creating better and fairer taxes for everybody. Because unless you have the courage to think about a brand new tax system, or you won't fix anything, especially on the long run. And having taxes that are limited to a small amount of the population has no sense, as well as the world agreement on the large groups that manufacture in China and then transfer to Thailand and then have intermediators in Cayman, and they keep the profits where it is most convenient and most profitable, and certainly not in Italy. So this does not guarantee the balance that we need in a country instead that wants to be fair and balanced. We certainly need, again, to consider the important role by intermediary bodies. And I will ask myself a question in order to say something that I really care for. So I think that the government needs the help of all stakeholders, because every day, every month, we need to see how the situation will evolve. And we will certainly need to calibrate our measures on these basic needs, digitization, training, and investments. So we really need to seize this opportunity in order not to miss this unique chance. Thank you. A very quick question. Also because it hasn't to do specifically with your ministry. Okay, let's talk about the vaccine campaign that so far has been pretty successful. You can either answer or not. Well, in your opinion, will the autumn be better in terms of operating conditions? Well, I'm quite optimistic. We have reached a 70% share, and honestly, I think that we still need to make some pressure to increase its share even more. Thank you, Minister. I think that today we really made something good and unique, because we need people who have the courage to share their experiences, their problems, and to talk with the government. So the important thing is to go beyond any sort of cooperation attitude. Instead, a co-responsibility attitude needs to be embraced. So we have learned a lot about a world that maybe was not so well known. We got to know more about the businesses that make up our retail sector, and the Vice Minister really seems to be a person who is there to listen and to try to make his contribution honestly and authentically. I would like to thank all our guests, you who followed us from remote or in person, and everything that you heard was possible thanks to the meeting, and the meeting is possible thanks to donations. So do not hesitate to donate in every donation desk here at the Rimini Trade Fair premises. Thank you very much, and we wish you good lunch.
Più investiamo nel presente, prima raggiungiamo il futuro. Questa è l'idea che ci spinge ogni giorno a muovere il nostro paese verso la ripresa, a dare a tutti nuovi percorsi da seguire, a usare l'innovazione per essere più liberi di crescere, a esportare la nostra eccellenza italiana nel mondo, ad anticipare i cambiamenti per costruire un domani più sostenibile con tutti voi. Perché il futuro è la nostra destinazione, solo se è un viaggio che facciamo insieme. Più investiamo nel presente, prima raggiungiamo il futuro. Questa è l'idea che ci spinge ogni giorno a muovere il nostro paese verso la ripresa, a dare a tutti nuovi percorsi da seguire, a usare l'innovazione per essere più liberi di crescere, a esportare la nostra eccellenza italiana nel mondo, ad anticipare i cambiamenti per costruire un domani più sostenibile con tutti voi. Perché il futuro è la nostra destinazione, solo se è un viaggio che facciamo insieme.